In the sweltering heat of Mississippi, 1849, a story unfolded that defied every rule of its time. This isn't just a tale from the history books. It is a story about a connection so powerful it dared to bloom in the most forbidden of soils. It's the story of Alara, the overseer's daughter, and Samuel, a man bound by chains but with a spirit that could not be broken. Alara grew up on the periphery of the cotton fields, her world shaped by the sharp commands of her father, a man whose heart had hardened under the relentless southern sun. She was taught that the people who worked the fields were less than human mere property. Her days were spent practicing etiquette and needlepoint, groomed to be the perfect wife for a wealthy landowner, but from her window she saw a different reality. She saw the resilience, the quiet dignity, and the shared humanity of the enslaved people her father managed. She saw Samuel. Samuel was strong, his hands calloused from years of hard labor, but it was his eyes that truly captivated Alara. They held a depth of sorrow, yes, but also an unyielding intelligence and a spark of defiance that the harshest conditions couldn't extinguish. He carried himself with a quiet strength that seemed to challenge the very foundation of their oppressive world. Alara found herself drawn to him, her gaze lingering a little too long as he worked, her heart aching with a confusing mix of pity, admiration, and something more, something she didn't yet have a name for. Their worlds were separated by an impassable gulf, yet fate, it seems, had other plans. Small stolen moments became their lifeline. A shared glance across the yard, a dropped handkerchief that Samuel would discreetly return, a fleeting, almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgment. These tiny gestures were like drops of rain in a barren desert, nourishing a seed of affection that had taken root against all odds. In secret, Alara started leaving small tokens for him: a piece of fruit, a strip of clean cloth for a wound, a book she had finished reading, left near the barn where she knew he'd find it. One evening, driven by a recklessness she didn't know she possessed, Alara slipped out to the springhouse where Samuel was often sent to fetch cool water. Her heart hammered against her ribs. There, under the soft glow of the moon, they spoke for the first time, their voices hushed whispers against the symphony of cicadas. He spoke of his dreams, not of freedom which felt too vast and dangerous to even voice, but of smaller things, of learning to read more than just the few words he knew, of knowing what it felt like to walk without fear. Alara, in turn, spoke of her own gilded cage, of the loneliness that echoed in the grand, empty halls of her home. In that shared vulnerability, their connection deepened from a silent understanding into a tangible, trembling bond. Then came the day that would change everything. A minor infraction, a tool misplaced, was all it took for Alara's father to fly into a rage. His fury settled on Samuel, the one who always seemed to carry himself with a pride her father couldn't stand. He thrust a whip into Alara's hands. "Show him his place," he snarled, his voice a low growl. "Show him you are my daughter." The command was a test, a cruel rite of passage designed to burn away any misplaced sympathy she might harbor. The world seemed to stop. The air grew thick and heavy, the sounds of the plantation fading into a dull roar in her ears. Before her, Samuel stood, his back bared, his expression unreadable. He didn't plead, he didn't beg. He simply looked at her, and in his eyes she didn't see fear but a profound and heartbreaking trust. He was trusting her to see the man, not the slave. He was trusting her to remember their whispered conversations by the springhouse. Her father's eyes were on her, cold and expectant. The other workers watched in horrified silence. Her hand trembled, the leather of the whip feeling alien and monstrous in her grasp. In that moment, Alara was faced with an impossible choice: obey her father and shatter the most precious connection she had ever known, or defy him and face consequences she couldn't even begin to imagine. It was a choice between the world she was born into and the world she was beginning to believe was possible. With a choked sob, she let the whip fall from her nerveless fingers, slithering to the dust like a dead snake. She turned to face her father, her small frame shaking but her eyes blazing with a newfound fire. "No," she whispered. The word a cannon shot in the suffocating silence. "I will not." The gasp that rippled through the onlookers was a mixture of shock and terror. Her father's face contorted with rage, his daughter's defiance a betrayal more painful than any physical blow. He saw the bond between them, the truth of it, in that single act of rebellion. The consequences were swift and brutal. Elara was locked in her room, her fate to be decided, but she knew her old life was over. The charade was finished. Her act of defiance had not only saved Samuel from the lash, but it had also liberated her from her own prison of silence and compliance. That night, with help from a sympathetic housemaid who had seen Elara's kindness for years, a plan was hatched. It was a desperate, foolish plan, fueled by hope and the terrifying, exhilarating prospect of a life with Samuel. Under the cloak of a moonless night, Elara crept from the house. She met Samuel at the edge of the woods, the designated meeting point. There were no grand declarations, no time for tearful goodbyes to the life she was leaving behind. There was only the firm, reassuring clasp of his hand in hers. Their escape was a perilous journey northward, following the North Star, relying on the secret network of the Underground Railroad. They moved through dark forests and across rushing rivers, guided by brave souls who risked everything to help them. Every shadow held a threat. Every barking dog sent their hearts leaping into their throats, but in the quiet moments huddled together for warmth, they discovered the depth of their love. It was a love forged not in ballrooms or grand parlors, but in shared danger and mutual respect. He taught her how to read the stars, and she read to him from the single book she'd managed to bring, their voices mingling in the darkness. They were no longer the overseer's daughter and the enslaved man. They were just Elara and Samuel. Two people fighting for a future together. Years later, they found their freedom in the North. Life was not easy. They faced prejudice and hardship, but they faced it together. Samuel learned to read and write, eventually becoming a carpenter and a powerful voice in the abolitionist movement, his story a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Elara worked as a teacher, dedicating her life to educating children who had been denied the chance. They built a home, a family, a life service not on the foundations of ownership and oppression, but on love, equality, and a shared dream of a better world. Their story, once a whispered secret in the Mississippi heat, became a legacy of courage, a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, love can be the most profound act of rebellion. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey back in time. If you were moved by Elara and Samuel's story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more tales of hidden history. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.